Grand Central Terminal, November 1958. The afternoon light filters to the massive arch windows, casting long shadows across the marble floor. The air smells like cigarette smoke, coffee, and possibility. Travelers rush past in their best coats and polished shoes, heading to trains that will take them to lives Dean Martin will never know. Dean is standing near track 17, waiting for his manager to arrive from Los Angeles. He's supposed to be in rehearsals for his next television special in 2 hours. But right now, all he can think about is a flask in his coat pocket and how empty success feels when you're standing alone in a train station. He's at the absolute peak of his career. His records are selling millions. His movies with Jerry Lewis are box office gold, even though that partnership is starting to crack. He's got a new NBC television show starting next month. America loves him. Women want him. Men want to be him. Dean Martin is everything 1950s America wants in a star. Smooth, charming, effortlessly cool. But standing here in Grand Central Terminal, surrounded by thousands of people, Dean has never felt more alone. That's when he sees her, Rosa, his first wife, the woman he married when he was still Dino Crocetti, singing in smoky clubs in Ohio for $20 a night, before Hollywood, before fame, before he became Dean Martin and forgot who Dino Crocetti ever was. She's walking toward the platforms, pushing a double stroller. Two boys, maybe 4 years old, dressed in matching navy blue coats and caps. She looks older than he remembers, but still beautiful. Her dark hair is shorter now, pinned back in style all the women are wearing. She's thinner, tired, but there's something else in her face too. Something Dean recognizes because he sees in the mirror every morning. The weight of secrets. Dean's first instinct is to turn away, to disappear into the crowd before she sees him. They haven't spoken in 6 years. Not since the divorce was finalized in 1952. Not since she told him she couldn't live with a man who was never home, never present. Never really there even when he was standing right in front of her. But then one of the boys in the stroller turns his head, and Dean's heart stops. The boy has his eyes. Not just similar eyes. His eyes. The exact shade of brown. The same shape, the same intensity. And when the boy smiles at something his brother says, there it is, Dean's dimple. The one that's been photographed 1,000 times. The one that women across America dream about. Dean's feet won't move. He's frozen there on the marble floor of Grand Central Terminal, watching Rosa push a stroller with two boys who look exactly like him. The odds of coincidence collapse. These aren't just boys who happen to resemble him. These are boys who share his face, his features, his DNA. These are his sons. Rosa sees him. Her face goes pale. She stops walking, her hands gripping the stroller handle, so hard her knuckles turn white. For a moment, they just stare at each other across the crowded terminal. Two people who once promised forever, who broke those promises, who never expected to see each other again. Especially not like this. Dean forces his feet to move. He walks toward her slowly, carefully, like he's approaching something wild that might bolt at any sudden movement. People recognize him as he passes. That's Dean Martin. He hears someone whisper, but he doesn't smile, doesn't acknowledge them. For once in his public life, Dean Martin doesn't perform. Rosa, he says when he reaches her. His voice sounds strange to his own ears. Rough, uncertain. Dean. She says his name like it's a prayer and a curse at the same time. He looks down at the boys. They're staring up at him with identical expressions of curiosity. Up close, the resemblance is even more striking. They have his nose, his jawline, his ears. It's like looking at photographs of himself as a child, except there are two of them. How old are they? Dean asks, though he already knows. He's doing the math in his head, counting back, remembering. For, Rosa says quietly, they turn 5 in January. Dean's mind races back to the spring of 1954. He'd been in New York for a show. Rose had called him, said she needed to see him, needed to talk. He'd gone to her apartment in Brooklyn, and they'd talked, and then they'd done more than talk. One night, one moment of weakness, or maybe nostalgia, or maybe just two lonely people who remembered when love was simple and fame hadn't destroyed everything. He'd left the next morning and never called her again. He told himself it was better that way. Cleaner. They were divorced. That chapter was closed. Except it wasn't closed at all. Rosa, he says again, and this time there's a question in his voice. A terrible, unavoidable question. Not here, she says, her eyes darting around the crowded terminal. Not with people listening. The man behind the smile. Dean Martin's life is a carefully constructed performance. On stage, on screen, even in interviews, he's always the same. Smooth, charming, quick with a joke and a drink. He makes it look effortless. Like he was born to be a star. Like success just fell into his lap while he was laughing and singing and breaking hearts. The truth is more complicated. Dino Crocetti grew up in Steubenville, Ohio, the son of Italian immigrants. His father was a barber. They were poor. Dino dropped out of school in 10th grade, worked as a bootlegger, a car dealer, a gas station attendant. He taught himself to sing by listening to records, practicing in front of the mirror until his accent softened, until Dino Crocetti could become Dean Martin. He married Rosa in 1941. He was 24, she was 19. They were in love the way young people are in love, with everything ahead of them and no idea what success would cost. They had 4 children together, Stephen, Claudia, Barbara, and Deanna. Dean loved them in his way, but his way was distant, distracted, always focused on the next show, the next opportunity, the next step up the ladder. He was building a career, and building a career meant sacrifice. Rosa was the one who sacrificed. She was the one who stayed home with the children, while Dean toured for months at a time. She was the one who explained to their kids why Daddy wasn't there for birthdays, for Christmas, for the small daily moments that make a childhood. She was the one who held everything together while Dean chased fame. By 1949, Dean had partnered with Jerry Lewis. They became the biggest comedy act in America. The money poured in. The fame exploded. Dean bought a house in Beverly Hills, started dating actresses and models, stopped coming home even when he wasn't working. Rosa filed for divorce in 1951. It was finalized in 1952. Dean married again almost immediately. Jean Beager, a former Orange Bowl queen. Beautiful, blonde, young. Everything Hollywood expected from a star's wife. They had 3 more children, Dean, Paul, Ricci, and Gina. On the surface, Dean's second marriage looked perfect. Another beautiful family. Another set of Christmas card photos. Another performance. But Dean's relationship with his older children from his first marriage never recovered. Stephen grew distant, resentful. The girls tried to maintain contact, but it was always strained, always complicated by the divorce, by Dean's new family, by the fact that he'd chosen his career over them. Dean told himself he was providing for them, sending money. That was what fathers did, right? They provided. But providing isn't the same as being present. And Dean Martin, for all his talent, for all his success, had never learned how to be present. Now, standing in Grand Central Terminal, looking at 2 more sons he didn't know existed, Dean is faced with a question that terrifies him. What if he's been running from fatherhood his entire life? What if the smoothest performance he ever gave was convincing himself that he didn't need to show up? The reunion. They go to a coffee shop 3 blocks from Grand Central. It's small, anonymous, the kind of place where nobody looks twice at anyone. Rosa parks the stroller by their booth. The twins are getting fussy, hungry. She gives them crackers from her purse, and they quiet down, munching contentedly. Dean can't stop staring at them. Every gesture, every expression reminds him of himself. The way one of them wrinkles his nose. The way the other one tilts his head when he's thinking. It's like watching home movies of a childhood he never had. What are their names? Dean asks. Marco and Matteo. Rosa says, after my grandfathers. Marco and Matteo. Dean repeats. The names feel foreign in his mouth. He's never said them before. Never knew they existed until 20 minutes ago. Rosa orders coffee for both of them. Dean doesn't drink his. He just sits there, hands wrapped around the cup for warmth, trying to process what's happening. That night, Rosa says finally, in 1954, I didn't plan for it to happen. Neither did I. Dean says, I was lonely, she continues. The divorce had been finalized for 2 years, and I was still lonely. I'd see you on television, in the movies, and I'd remember when we were young, when things were simple. I thought, maybe if we talked, if we could just be friends. She trails off, looking down at her coffee. I found out I was pregnant 2 months later, she says. I didn't know it was twins at first. That came later. I thought about calling you. I picked up the phone a dozen times. But what was I going to say? Hello, Dean. Remember that night we weren't supposed to have? Well, surprise. You should have told me, Dean says, but there's no conviction in his voice. Because the truth is, he doesn't know what he would have done if she had called. Probably nothing. Probably the same thing he always did. Disappear behind his career, behind his image, behind the character Dean Martin, who never lets anything touch him. I met someone, Rosa says. His name was Antonio Rossi. He was a musician, played violin in a small orchestra in Brooklyn. Nothing like your success, just a man who loved music and worked hard and wanted a family. She looks at the boys with such tenderness that Dean feels something crack inside his chest. I told him I was pregnant, Rosa continues. I told him the father was out of the picture, that I was going to raise him alone. And Antonio said, don't raise him alone. Marry me. Let me be their father. He knew they weren't his? Dean asks. He knew. He didn't care. He said love is a choice, not biology. He said he chose us. Rosa's voice breaks slightly. He was a good father, Dean. Better than he needed to be. He read to them every night, taught them songs, made them laugh. They called him Papa. Dean notices she's using the past tense. Called. Rosa wipes her eyes. Antonio died 6 months ago. Heart attack. He was only 43. One day he was playing with the boys in the park, and the next day he was gone. Just like that. I'm sorry, Dean says, and he means it. He's sorry for Rosa's loss. Sorry for the boys' loss. Sorry that a man he never met was a better father to his biological children than Dean has been to any of his kids. That's why we're here, Rosa says. In New York. I've been staying with my sister in Queens since Antonio died. But I can't keep relying on her charity. I need to figure out what comes next. I need to... She looks at Dean, and there's something desperate in her eyes. I need to know if you're going to acknowledge them. The question hangs in the air between them. One of the twins, Marco, starts to fuss. Rosa reaches into the stroller and picks him up, settling him on her lap. He leans against her, thumb in his mouth, and stares at Dean with those eyes that are exactly like Dean's eyes. Mama, Marco says softly, who's that man? Rosa looks at Dean. The question in her eyes is clear. What do I tell him? Dean's throat is tight. His hands are shaking. He's performed for presidents, for millions of people, on stages and screens across the world. But right now, he can't find his voice. This is an old friend of Mama's, Rosa says finally, her voice steady even though tears are running down her face. His name is Dean. Marco considers this. Then he smiles and that dimple appears, and Dean has to look away because it hurts too much to see. The truth revealed. They stay in that coffee shop for 2 hours. Rosa tells Dean everything. After that night in 1954, she tried to move on with her life. She dated, but nothing serious. She was a divorced woman with 4 children and another one on the way. Most men ran the other direction, but Antonio didn't run. He'd been playing violin at a friend's wedding where Rosa was a guest. They'd talked during the reception. He'd asked for a number. She'd given it to him, not expecting anything. When she told him she was pregnant, she expected him to disappear like everyone else. But Antonio had proposed instead. Why? Dean asks, why would he take on another man's children? Rosa's answer is simple. Because he loved me. Because he wanted a family. Because he believed that fatherhood is about showing up, not about genetics. They'd gotten married in a small ceremony in Brooklyn. Antonio had been there in the delivery room when the twins were born. He'd cut their umbilical cords. He'd stayed up all night with them when they were sick. He'd taught them their first words. He'd been Papa in every way that mattered. Did they ever ask about their real father? Dean asks. They're 4 years old, Rosa says. They don't understand real father versus anything else. They had Papa. That was enough. When he died, I told them Papa went to heaven. They ask when he's coming back. I tell them that people in heaven don't come back, but they're always watching over us. Dean feels like he's been punched in the gut. These boys have a father. He's gone, but he's still their father. He's the one they remember, the one they love, the one they're waiting to come back from heaven. Dean is just biology, just genetics, just the man who looks like them in the mirror. What do you want from me? Dean asks quietly. Rosa takes a long time to answer. When she does, her voice is steady, but Dean can hear the exhaustion underneath it. I don't want your money, she says. I'm not here to blackmail you or threaten to go to the papers. I know what that would do to your career, to your marriage. I don't want to destroy your life. Then what? Dean asks. I want you to know they exist. Rosa says simply. I want you to know that you have 2 more sons. I want you to have the choice that I made for you 5 years ago. You can walk away and I'll never contact you again. Or you can be part of their lives. How? Dean asks, and he hears the desperation in his own voice. How am I supposed to be part of their lives? I'm married. I have 3 more kids. I'm on television every week. Every move I make is photographed. How am I supposed to explain 2 more children who appeared out of nowhere? I don't have those answers, Rosa says. I'm just giving you the choice. Dean looks at Marco, asleep now on Rosa's lap, at Matteo, still in the stroller, playing quietly with a toy car. They're innocent. They didn't ask for any of this. They didn't ask to be born from one night of weakness and nostalgia. They didn't ask for a famous father who doesn't know how to be a father. Let me think. Dean says, give me some time to figure this out. Rosa writes down her sister's address in Queens on a napkin and slides it across the table. Take all the time you need, she says. But Dean, don't take forever. These boys deserve to know their father, if you're willing to be one. And if you're not, she picks up Marco carefully, not wanting to wake him. If you're not, then tell me now so I can stop hoping. Dean takes the napkin. He puts it in his pocket. He watches Rosa bundle both boys back into their coats, back into the stroller. He watches her walk out of the coffee shop and disappear into New York afternoon. And then Dean Martin, the man who never lets anything touch him, the man who always has a joke and a drink and a smile, puts his head in his hands and cries. The impossible choice. Dean doesn't go to rehearsals that day. He doesn't go home to New Jersey where Jean is waiting with their 3 children. He doesn't call his manager or his publicist or anyone who expects Dean Martin to be where Dean Martin is supposed to be. Instead, he gets a room at the Plaza Hotel. He sits by the window and watches the city lights come on one by one as darkness falls. And he thinks about everything he's running from. His older children from his first marriage barely speak to him anymore. Stephen is angry, bitter about the divorce, about being replaced by Dean's new family. Claudia tries to maintain a relationship, but it's strained, formal. Barbara and Deanna are younger, more forgiving, but even they know their father is more comfortable on stage than at home. Dean tells himself this is just how it is. He's a star. Stars make sacrifices. Their families make sacrifices. That's the price of fame. But sitting in this hotel room, thinking about Marco and Matteo, Dean wonders what he's actually sacrificed, because it wasn't his comfort or his happiness or his success. Those things only grew. What he sacrificed was the chance to be present, the chance to be real, the chance to be a father instead of just a provider. Antonio Rossi had nothing compared to Dean Martin. No fame, no fortune, no spotlight, just a violin and a desire to be a good father. And by all accounts, he'd succeeded. He'd been there. He'd shown up. He'd chosen love over everything else. Dean has never chosen love over anything. Not over his career, not over his image, not over the comfortable distance that keeps him safe from real emotion. The phone rings. It's Jean, worried. Where are you? They said you never showed up to rehearsals. I'm in the city, Dean says. I needed some time to think. About what? There's concern in her voice. Jean is a good wife, patient, understanding, willing to accept the parts of Dean he's willing to give her, about everything. Dean says, "I'll be home tomorrow." He hangs up before she can ask more questions. The next morning, Dean takes a cab to Queens. He finds Rose's sister's apartment building, a 5-story walk-up in a working-class neighborhood. He sits in the cab for 20 minutes, watching the building, try to decide if he's going to get out or tell the driver to take him back to Manhattan. Finally, he pays the driver and walks up the steps. He knocks on apartment 3B. Rosa opens the door. She looks surprised to see him. "Dean, I want to know them," he says. The words come out in a rush before he can change his mind. "I want to be part of their lives. But I can't do it publicly. Not yet. Not until I figure out how to explain this to Jean, to my other kids. I need time." Rosa nods slowly. "What are you proposing?" "Let me be Uncle Dean," he says. "Let me visit when I'm in New York. Let me get to know them. Let me figure out how to be what they need." "Uncle Dean," Rosa repeats. "It's better than nothing," Dean says. "It's better than disappearing." Rosa steps aside. They're in the living room, playing with blocks. Dean walks in. Marco and Matteo are on the floor, building a tower. When they see him, they look up with identical expressions of curiosity. "Boys," Rosa says, "remember the man from yesterday? This is Uncle Dean. He's going to visit us, sometimes. Is that okay?" Marco nods enthusiastically. Matteo is more cautious, but he doesn't protest. Dean sits down on the floor with them. "Can I help with your tower?" Matteo hands him a block. It's red, plastic, worn smooth from use. Dean places it carefully on top of the tower. The boys cheer when it doesn't fall. And just like that, Dean Martin becomes Uncle Dean, learning to be present. Over the next 6 months, Dean visits whenever he's in New York. Sometimes it's once a week. Sometimes 2 weeks pass between visits. But he comes. He shows up. At first, he doesn't know what to do with them. He's forgotten how to interact with children this young. His own kids with Jean have nannies, tutors, structure. Dean drops in, plays for a few minutes, and then retreats to his study with a drink. But Marco and Matteo don't have nannies. They just have Rosa, struggling to make ends meet, and Uncle Dean, who shows up in expensive suits and still doesn't know how to just be. One afternoon in March, Dean takes them to Central Park. It's the first warm day of spring, and the park is full of families. Dean buys the boys ice cream, and they sit on a bench watching other children play. Marco gets chocolate ice cream all over his face. Dean tries to clean it with a handkerchief, but Marco squirms and laughs, making it worse. Matteo thinks this is hilarious and dumps his own ice cream on his shirt deliberately. "Hey!" Dean says, but he's laughing too. He can't help it. Their joy is infectious. An older woman walking past smiles at them. "Your boys are adorable," she says to Dean. Dean's first instinct is to correct her. But then he looks at Marco and Matteo, at their faces at his face, at their laughter that sounds like music. "Thank you," he says instead. After she walks away, Dean feels something shift inside him. For just a moment, he'd claimed them, not as Uncle Dean, but as their father, and it had felt right. He starts bringing them small gifts, a toy car, a coloring book, a baseball, nothing extravagant, nothing that would raise questions if anyone saw, just tokens of presence. Rosa watches him carefully during these visits. She doesn't push, doesn't demand more than he's willing to give. But Dean can see the question in her eyes. Were you going to tell them the truth? In May, Dean takes them to Coney Island. They ride the carousel, eat hot dogs, dig in the sand. Matteo falls asleep on the subway ride back to Queens, and Dean carries him off the train. The boys head heavy on his shoulder. This, Dean thinks, this is what I've been missing. Not the applause or the fame or the sold-out shows. This, a child's weight in his arms. The trust of someone falling asleep because they feel safe with you. The simple presence of being there. That night, after Rosa puts the boys to bed, she and Dean sit in her sister's small kitchen, drinking coffee. They're asking questions. Rosa says, about you, about why you visit, about why you look like them. What do you tell them? Dean asks, I tell them that you're a special friend, Rosa says. But Dean, they're getting older, smarter. They'll figure out eventually. And when they do, they'll wonder why nobody told them the truth. I know, Dean says, but knowing doesn't make a decision any easier. Ghosts and whispers. Dean's double life begins to fracture in the summer of 1959. He's filming a new movie with Shirley MacLaine, and the tabloids are having a field day speculating about an affair. There isn't one. Dean's actually been faithful to Jean, more faithful than he's ever been in any relationship. But that doesn't stop the gossip. The increased media attention makes him paranoid. Every time he visits Queens, he's terrified someone will recognize him, will photograph him with the boys, will connect the dots. And people are starting to connect dots. In July, someone from his publicity team mentions seeing him at Central Park with 2 young boys. Didn't know you had nephews visiting, the publicist says casually. Yeah, Dean lies. Rosa's kids. My ex-wife. They're in town for the summer. The publicist nods, seemingly satisfied. But Dean knows gossip spreads. Questions multiply. Worse, his older children are reaching out. Stephen, now 19, calls Dean's office demanding a meeting. Claudia writes letters that Dean doesn't know how to answer. They're angry that he has a new family, that he seems to have more time for Jean's children than he ever had for them. How is Dean supposed to tell them there's another secret family? 2 more sons they don't know about? One night, Dean has dinner with his daughter Deanna. She's 16 now, perceptive, sensitive to undercurrents. They're at a restaurant in Manhattan, and Deanna is telling him about school, about boys, about normal teenage concerns. Then she says, Dad, are you okay? You seem distracted lately. I'm fine, Dean says automatically. You're lying, Deanna says simply. I can always tell when you're lying. You do this thing with your hands. She trails off, staring at something over Dean's shoulder. Dean turns to see what she's looking at. Rosa has just walked into the restaurant with Marco and Mateo. She hasn't seen Dean yet. She's focused on the boys, making sure they behave in public. Deanna's eyes widen. Dad, those boys, they look like me. Dean finishes quietly. Yeah, Deanna whispers. Yeah, they really do. Rosa sees him then. Their eyes meet across the restaurant. She immediately understands the situation. Dean with his daughter, caught, and quickly ushers the boys to a table on the far side of the room. But the damage is done. Deanna has seen. Deanna knows. Dad, she says, and there's hurt in her voice. Are those, do you have... It's complicated. Dean says. That's what you always say, Deanna replies. Everything's complicated. Your career is complicated. Your schedule is complicated. Your relationships are complicated. But Dad, those boys look exactly like you. That's not complicated. That's just truth. Dean signals for the check. He needs to leave, needs to think, needs to figure out how to contain this. But Deanna isn't done. How many of us are there? She asks. How many children do you have that we don't know about? Just them. Dean says, I swear, just them. Does Mom know? Deanna means Jean. No. What about my mom? Does she know? Rosa? Of course she knows. There are children, too. I mean, does she know that you've been hiding more children? That you've been lying to all of us? Dean doesn't have an answer for that. Deanna stands up. I need to go. Deanna, please. I need to think about this, Dad. I need to... She looks across the restaurant at Marco and Mateo. They deserve better than secrets. She leaves before Dean can stop her. Dean sits alone at the table for a long time. Around him, people eat and laugh and live their lives. None of them know that Dean Martin's carefully constructed world is falling apart. He looks across the restaurant at Rosa and the boys. Marco waves at him, a shy little wave. Dean waves back. The truth is coming, whether Dean is ready or not. The reckoning. 2 weeks later, Dean gets a call from his lawyer. Someone has been asking questions. A reporter, digging into Dean's past, calling old friends in Steubenville, asking about his first marriage. It's probably nothing, the lawyer says. But you should be prepared in case someone's trying to build a story. Dean knows it's not nothing. Secrets this big don't stay buried forever. He drives to Queens that evening without calling first. Rosa answers the door, looking exhausted. The boys are already in bed. "We need to talk," Dean says. They sit in the kitchen. Rosa makes tea that neither of them drinks. "Someone's digging," Dean says. "A reporter. I don't know what they know yet, but I know it's coming. The truth is coming." Rosa nods slowly. "So, what do we do?" "I need to tell Jean," Dean says, "before she reads in the papers. I need to tell my kids. All of them. I need to..." He runs his hands through his hair. "I need to be honest for once in my life." "And Marco and Matteo?" Rosa asks, "When do they learn the truth?" This is a question Dean has been avoiding for 18 months. The question that terrifies him more than any career fallout, more than any scandal. "I want to tell them," Dean says. "I want them to know I'm their father. But Rosa, what if they hate me? What if they don't understand why I wasn't there? What if they wish Antonio was still alive instead of being stuck with me?" "Dean," Rosa says gently, "Antonio will always be their papa. He earned that. He was there. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for you too. Children don't have a limited capacity for love. They can love Antonio's memory and still have a relationship with you. What if I mess this up?" Dean asks, "What if I'm a terrible father to them, like I've been to my other kids?" "Then you'll mess it up," Rosa says. "But at least you'll mess it up while being present. That's more than you've given anyone else." The truth of her words cuts deep. "I need to do this right," Dean says. "Not for my career, not for damage control. For them. They deserve the truth. They deserve a father who chooses them, not one who just acknowledges them when he's forced to. So choose them," Rosa says simply. "Right now, choose to be their father. Not Uncle Dean. Not a secret. Their father." Dean looks at Rosa, this woman he married when they were both so young, when the world was simpler, when Dino Crocetti hadn't yet become Dean Martin. He sees the life they could have had if he'd made different choices. He sees the children they made together, the ones he knew about and raised badly, and the ones he didn't know about until it was almost too late. "I choose them," Dean says, and saying out loud makes it real. "I choose to be their father. I choose to show up. I choose to stop running." Rosa reaches across the table and takes his hand. "Then let's tell them tomorrow." That night, Dean doesn't go back to New Jersey. He gets a hotel room in Manhattan and sits up until dawn, thinking about what he's going to say to 5-year-old boys who think their father is in heaven. The greatest performance. The next morning is a Saturday. Dean arrives at Rosa's sister's apartment at 9 o'clock. He's nervous in a way he's never been nervous before a performance. His hands shake as he climbs the stairs. Rosa answers the door. "They're having breakfast," she says. "Are you ready?" "No," Dean admits, "but let's do it anyway." Marco and Matteo are at the kitchen table eating cereal. When they see Dean, they light up. "Uncle Dean!" Marco shouts. Dean sits down with them. His heart is pounding so hard he's sure they can hear it. "Boys," Rosa says, "Uncle Dean, and I need to talk to you about something important." Matteo's face gets serious. Marco keeps eating his cereal, milk dripping down his chin. "You remember Papa?" Rosa continues. "You remember how I told you Papa went to heaven?" Both boys nod. Matteo's eyes fill with tears. He still cries when they talk about Antonio. "Papa loved you very much," Rosa says, "and he'll always be your Papa, the man who raised you, who took care of you, who was there for you. Nothing will ever change that. But," Dean says, his voice rough, "there's something else you should know. Before you were born, before Mama met Papa, she knew me. We used to be married. And when you were born, I didn't know about you. Nobody told me." The boys stare at him, not understanding yet. What Uncle Dean is trying to say, Rosa continues, is that he's not just Uncle Dean. He's your biological father. That means you came from him and from me. That's why you look like him. That's why you have the same dimples, the same eyes. The silence stretches out. Marco has stopped eating. Matteo is crying harder now. But Dean can't tell if it's grief for Antonio or confusion about this revelation or something else entirely. I don't want a new papa, Mateo says through his tears. I want my real papa back. Dean's heart breaks. He kneels down next to Mateo's chair. I'm not trying to replace Papa, he says gently. Papa was your father in all the ways that mattered. He chose you. He loved you. He was there for you. I can't replace that, and I don't want to. Then why are you telling us? Marco asks. He's a practical one, always asking questions. Because Dean says, I want to be part of your life. Not as Uncle Dean, but as your father too. Not instead of Papa, but alongside his memory. I want to be there for you. I want to show up. I want to be the kind of father I should have been from the beginning. But you weren't there, Marco says. It's not an accusation, just a fact. No, Dean admits. I wasn't, and I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you were born. I'm sorry I missed your first steps and your first words and all the things fathers should be there for. I can't get those moments back, but I can be here now. If you'll let me. Mateo has stopped crying. He's studying Dean with those eyes that are Dean's eyes. Are you going to leave? He asks. Like Papa did? Papa didn't want to leave, Dean says. His heart stopped working. But me? I'm choosing to stay. I'm choosing to be your father. Not because I have to, not because someone's making me, but because I want to. Because you're my sons and I love you. It's the first time Dean has said those words out loud. I love you. He's never been good at saying them. Not to his older children. Not to his wives. Not to anyone. Love was something Dean showed through money and gifts and absence disguised as providing. But sitting here on the floor of this queen's apartment, looking at two 5-year-old boys with his face and Antonio Rossi's heart, Dean understands that love is actually simpler than he made it. Love is showing up. Love is being present. Love is choosing someone over and over again, even when it's hard, even when it costs you. Can we still call you Uncle Dean? Marco asks. You can call me whatever you want. Dean says. I won't call you Dad, Mateo says quietly, then quickly adds, but Papa is still Papa. In heaven, Papa will always be Papa. Dean agrees. And I'll be Dad. And you'll have two fathers who love you, even though one of them is watching from heaven. Marco thinks about this. Okay, he says finally, but you have to teach us to sing like you. Dean laughs, and it's the first genuine laugh he's had in months. Deal. They spend the rest of the morning together. Dean teaches them that's amore, singing it badly on purpose to make them laugh. They play cards. They draw pictures. And slowly, carefully, a new relationship begins to form. Not perfect, not without complications, but real. Later that week, Dean sits Jean down and tells her everything. The brief reunion with Rosa, the twins, the secret visits. Uncle Dean. Jean is hurt, angry, betrayed. She has every right to be, but she's also practical. They work out an arrangement. Dean will acknowledge the boys publicly. He'll provide for them financially. He'll visit regularly. And Jean will stand by him through the scandal, because that's what wives do in 1959. It's not ideal, but it's honest. Dean calls his older children and tells them too. Stephen hangs up on him. Claudia cries. Barbara is surprisingly understanding. Deanna, who already knew, just says, I'm glad you finally told the truth. The press finds out within days. The headlines are brutal. Dean Martin's secret sons. Love child scandal rocks Hollywood. Rat Pack stars double life exposed. Dean's manager is furious. His publicist is working overtime on damage control. NBC is concerned about his television show. But Dean doesn't hide. For the first time in his public life, he doesn't perform. He gives one interview. Just one. He sits down with a respected journalist and tells the truth. The whole truth. The reunion with Rosa. The boys. Antonio Rossi. The man who was their real father in every way that mattered. Dean's shame at not being there. His determination to be there now. I've made a lot of mistakes, Dean says to the camera. As a husband, as a father, as a man, I put my career before my family. I ran from responsibility. I hid from truth, but I'm done running. These boys, Marco and Matteo, they're my sons, and I'm going to be their father. Not their uncle, not a secret, their father, because that's what they deserve. That's what all my children deserve. The interview airs on a Sunday night. Dean watches it with Jean and their 3 children. When it's over, his daughter Gina, who's only 6, climbs into his lap. "Daddy," she says, "are Marco and Matteo our brothers now?" "Yes," Dean says. "They are." "Good." Gina says, "I always wanted more brothers." It's such a simple statement, such pure acceptance, that Dean has to fight back tears. The scandal does hurt his career. Some shows are canceled. Some venues don't want him. Conservative groups protest. He loses endorsement deals. But Dean discovers something surprising. Most people forgive him. Maybe because he owned his mistakes. Maybe because people understood that families are complicated. Maybe because America in 1959, despite all its rules and judgments, still believed in second chances. Or maybe people just like the idea of Dean Martin finally showing up. Over the next few years, Dean builds a real relationship with Marco and Matteo. He moves Rosa and the boys to Los Angeles, sets them up in a house near his own. He spends every other weekend with them. He shows up to their school plays. He teaches them to play golf. He introduces them to Frank and Sammy, who become unofficial uncles. He repairs his relationship with his older children, too. It takes time. There are therapy sessions and difficult conversations and years of rebuilding trust. But slowly, Stephen stops being so angry. Claudia forgives him. Barbara and Deanna become close to their half-brothers. His marriage to Jean eventually ends in divorce, but it's amicable. They're better friends than they ever were as spouses. And Dean learns what it means to be present. Not perfect, but present. Not absent, but available. Not hiding behind fame and drinks and jokes, but showing up as himself, flaws, mistakes, and all. The twins grow up knowing 2 fathers. Papa, who raised them and loved them and died too soon. And Dad, who found them late but chose to stay. On Dean Martin's 60th birthday, Marco and Matteo, now successful men with families of their own, throw him a party. All of Dean's children are there. All 7 of them. 8, if you count Jean's children who still call him Dad. Matteo gives a toast. "To my father," he says, "who taught me that it's never too late to show up. That love is a choice, not an obligation. That being present matters more than being perfect." He raises his glass. "To Dad, who gave me life twice. Once when I was born, and again when he chose to be my father." Dean cries. He's not embarrassed about it anymore. At 60, Dean Martin has finally learned that showing emotion isn't weakness. It's the most honest performance he's ever given. Later that night, after everyone has left, Dean sits alone in his backyard, nursing a drink and thinking about the journey from Grand Central Terminal to this moment. He thinks about Rosa, pushing that stroller, and how one chance encounter changed everything. He thinks about Antonio Rossi, who taught him what fatherhood really means without ever meeting him. He thinks about Marco and Matteo, who forgave him for being absent and welcomed him when he finally showed up. And Dean realizes something profound. His greatest performance was never that Amore or any of his movies or his television specials. His greatest performance was choosing to be present, choosing to stop hiding, choosing to be a father not when it was convenient or easy or good for his image, but when it was necessary and hard and real. The train station was the beginning. But this family, this presence, this choice, this is a legacy. Dean Martin made the world smile for decades. But in the end, the smile that mattered most was his own, when he was surrounded by all his children and realized that he'd finally figure out what family means. Not perfection, not performance, just presence. And that, as it turns out, is enough.